this particular show in New York always has a really good turnout because the media is right down the street. I think you're going to see it threefold, the attention around it, because it's already being covered, heavily just in the proposed legislation or the talking about it, and it's already creating a buzz. So if in fact that comes to fruition, man, it's going to be attendance is going to be high, exhibitors are going to be high, advertisers are going to be high. I mean, it's going to be big for the shows.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Cashing Out, brought to you each week by Hoban Law. Today, we have my co-host, Dena Jalbert from Align Business Advisory Services with me again. Hey, Dena.
Hey, Dan. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too. Happy New Year to you.
Yeah.
We've been off for a couple weeks with the holidays. Not a lot goes on. I suspect it's pretty common in the mergers and acquisition business that it gets quiet as you go through the Christmas, New Year's holiday.
It does.
Yeah. Is that something that you battle with just about everybody?
Yeah, with everything from, every type of M&A we do, whether it's from fundraising to exits to acquisitions. We always see, I call it the holiday cliff, come about the, 18th to the 20th of the month, pretty much through the new year. We always see just a sharp fall off. Everybody's off for holidays, they're on vacation. We tend to have high level conversations with folks, if they're traveling, and they're in an airport, sometimes they like to respond to email or, have a couple introductory conversations, but nothing really ever moves in a meaningful way over the holidays. And especially with the fact that there's so many stakeholders in a transaction. So there's, the two parties, obviously, but then there's attorneys and bankers and, all sorts of other folks who get involved. And so, it's rare if we can ever get all of those people's attention at the end of the year, even though we certainly try our hardest. So
I find that you have high expectations for the holidays because you're like, okay, well, I won't have these demands. I think people make commitments that there's no way they're going to be able to satisfy. And especially if you're in the middle of a deal.
Yep.
You feel like they're just ignoring you, or because we plan to talk, or we plan to have this done, and we plan to have this ready to go. And I think when they make the plan, they have the best intentions. But once the holiday vortex hits, you just don't have time and you just don't have the energy. And you're like, well, listen, wait. And if you're on the wrong side of that one, you're like, whoa, maybe they don't want to do this anymore. And then you start to panic and maybe make a bad move. The key to getting through the holidays is just chill.
Exactly right. We tell folks all the time, just take it for what it is and nothing more than a vacation. It doesn't mean that folks' intentions have changed or that it's an indication of changing perception of the value of the deal or anything like that. It's really strictly people are just out of the office. They're with family, whether they have kids or they don't, whether they're, traveling. A lot of folks tend to take overseas vacations because it's an extended period of time. And so, oftentimes when that's the case, they're just truly unreachable, even in today's Wi-Fi world. The physicality of time changes and getting a hold of folks is really difficult to do. But it's very easy to get tied up in that emotional connection. Like, we said we were going to get this done, and we're not. And what does that mean?
Yeah.
And it really, it's a momentum thing. I always say it sucks. When you have your heart set on something getting done, but don't panic.
Don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. Yeah, just don't overthink it. Well, moving forward to our deal, I guess let me just say we had some exciting news coming out of New York State, which, as many of our listeners know, our first trade show, one of our big trade shows is in New York City. And Governor Cuomo finally came around and says, look, within the first 100 days, I'm going to have some legislation on my desk to pass laws for making marijuana or cannabis legal, recreationally legal in New York State, which is a gigantic thing for the whole country, for the whole industry, but particularly for this trade show. Holy cow, this is going to be big.
For sure. I mean, we've talked about in past shows that this particular show in New York always has a really good turnout because the media is right down the street. I think you're going to see it threefold, the attention around it, because it's already being covered, heavily just in the proposed legislation or the talking about it. And it's already creating a buzz. So if in fact that comes to fruition, man, it's going to be, attendance is going to be high, exhibitors are going to be high, advertisers are going to be high. I mean, it's going to be big for the show. So that's a really nice boon for this deal in particular, because you'll be heading into that show come this summer.
Sure,
so it's going to be a lot of good momentum.
Yeah, the exhibitors just benefit so much from being in New York, because they get all this free earned media. Just all these interviews that otherwise they wouldn't even have a chance at. Just walk over to their booth and there's a camera in their face. So that's why the show has historically done great. Well, and also with the investor community is all there, and but now we have New Jersey they had a couple things that they're working out, but it looks like that legislation is going to be moving forward. So New Jersey is going to have a rec bill in place quickly.
Yeah.
New York's positioning, it looks we're reading the tea leaves, everything looks right in New York. So I mean, this is going to be good for like I said, for the entire industry. So, but particularly for the show. So
yeah, and taking a step further, I mean, Elizabeth Warren just declared her candidacy for president, and one of her key platform points is cannabis and marijuana. So I think with her kind of first coming out with the rest, by her setting that precedent, I think it's going to be something hotly discussed and debated, and it's going to be a key item for both parties over the next year and a half as we head into the presidential elections as well. So I think the light is shining on the political landscape at a much higher level, and New York leading the pack, and that's going to do nothing but bode well for this show in particular.
And like the East Coast and the New England, our Boston show in New England, it's just like that was the sleeping giant. And now with those states coming around, it's going to be, I mean, it would be really hard for the federal government to let all this happen without getting involved. So I think the dominoes are falling fast. And so, let's talk about what we have to do now. The holidays are over.
Holidays are over.
We want to give everybody sort of a recap of where we are and what we're working on over the next few weeks to try to catch everybody up to speed.
Yeah. Absolutely. So last we spoke prior to the holiday, we were having quite a few conversations with quite a few interested parties, which is great. Our momentum has really kicked up. And it's interesting the different types of parties who are interested as well, which that's always a key strategy of ours for clients, is getting a breadth and a mix of different types of interested counterparties. So we have investment funds, we have other media outlets. It's a wide breadth of folks who have a real interest. And we, I will say, suffered a bit from the holiday cliff, as I like to say. We had a lot of good meetings leading right up to the holiday. But then everybody pretty much said, hey, let's continue conversations after the holidays. And so most of the folks are still out through the end of this week. Will be coming back come the 7th-ish. And then, the irony is that while the holidays are slow, we often find that January becomes a bit of a shotgun start. Like everybody's off to the races because for most, it's a new fiscal year. So there's new, bonus incentives at stake. There's new targets. There's new objectives. There's new strategy for all of these interested parties. And the sooner they can execute on those and start bringing in assets into the fold to help them grow and help them achieve those metrics for 2019, the better. So while it always is a bit painful to get through the quiet holiday season, what we actually see is that over the next 2 to 3 weeks, things are just off to the races. So for your deal in particular, Dan, we're going to continue these conversations, and they're going to take, I think, a hard shift into real serious terms. We're going to start talking term sheets and getting real solid interest with momentum towards a closing. I'm hopeful now. I have no crystal ball, but I'm hopeful by the end of the month to early February.
Yeah. Any of the people that were, I'm not going to hold you to this, but any of the people that were moving into those next phase discussions, are they uncomfortable, or will they be comfortable being on the show? Or do you think there's any chance we can get them to join us on the show?
It's worth asking, I would say, in this next wave of conversations with them. I think we should ask. It's something that I talk about with them often, and always send them links to each week as we release it, so that they can get a feel for how the momentum, and the fact that this is also an opportunity to educate the greater industry, which a lot of them, especially those who are media outlets, find a true value. They think it's really cool that we're doing that. So hopefully we can, but whenever their attorneys start to get involved, you just never know. So fingers crossed, we can convince them that they will. We'll see.
I understand. We were a little bit surprised when some of them said, I'm just not comfortable. It's kind of the same thing. It's when somebody's kicking the tires, they don't want the world to know that they're kicking the tires. When they get, as they get a little bit further down, they take it for a test drive. They're doing a few. now they really don't want anybody to know because they don't want one of their competitors jumping in and creating a bidding war. So it's, I get it. They don't want to make this public, but it'd be nice if we could grab a few of them. Well, we're going to give recaps. We're going to give updates, but
100%, 100%. And I'm glad that you said that, because that's something that we see often in all the deals that we do in cannabis. There is, because it's an emerging industry, and the strategies that investors are invoking truly are proprietary, and they are trying to be the first to do something, or be the first to grab a certain share, or be the first to do something in a certain vertical. They like to keep it a little hush. And so, even our firm, it's oftentimes we'll have clients who will ask us for references, and depending on what vertical, and then we may or may not be able to provide them, because we hold confidentiality very near and dear when the parties want to have it there. And so it can be a stumbling block sometimes, but because folks are trying to be so strategic that they don't want others to know what they're up to. But I think that in the subsequent shows, as we, over the next few weeks, we can give a high level recap if the folks won't join us, so that folks can still see what the next steps are like. And we can even recap some of the high level topics of conversation, what concerns and feedback are, and still give folks the feel that they're there, even if the other parties don't want to come on. Like you mentioned, there are other verticals that are saying, you know what, a trade show is a great way for me to promote my brand, and a great way for me to touch a lot of different companies. Maybe owning or having an ownership in a trade show. Traditionally, it wouldn't be something that you would think of, but again, in cannabis, we're rewriting the rules. So maybe now that with the technology and everything, it fits really nicely within their structure of their company, and it really is a great way for them to market their product or their brand or their messaging. So that's why, like you said, and they don't want their competitor to say, "Oh yeah, that is a good idea. Maybe I should do it too." And so that's why you're right. I get it. I completely get it. I wish they would, because it'd be really good information for our listeners. But you guys can read between the lines. So exactly. Yeah, so we can wrap it up today, but next week I do have a couple interviews lined up, so with a couple more investors. Like always, if anybody has any questions or thoughts or ideas or comments or people that they think we should, send us an email. Send us an email at connect@mjbulls.com. And wanted to give one shout out to Jamie Humiston, who produces the music for us for the show. So thanks, Jamie. We will circle back next week, next Sunday, and keep this thing going. Keep it going, yeah. All right. Thanks again, Dena. Thanks, Dan. Enjoy it as always. Take care. Have a good week.